In this video, we're going to show you how to make a dashboard in Power BI. So we're going to create the dashboard that you see here. We can see that we have donut charts, we have a gauge, we have a time chart, and we have tables. We can even have metrics like you see the 1 million there on our dashboard. So in order to build this in Power BI, we're going to, of course, first need, I'll just move this out of the way here, we're going to need to have Power BI running. So Microsoft Power BI is available through the enterprise package within Microsoft. So it is an additional expense to have Power BI, not included in most Microsoft 365 packages. So it's a download onto a Windows machine. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on Mac. So we have other videos where we are looking at how to build dashboards in Python using things like Streamlit if you don't have access to Power BI. But in case you're looking for Power BI dashboards, we'll show you quickly how to do that here. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to first need to import our data sets. And so I'm going to import a number of Excel workbooks. So I'm going to import data from Excel. And I, of course, need to go find those files, which right now I have them in Downloads and Power BI Example. And then they're not showing. So my files right now are CSV files. So if you want to see them, you have to go to All Files. You can import CSV or Excel. And I'm going to import them. And you got to import them, unfortunately, kind of one at a time. They're going to show up here on the right under Data. And the one complaint I have about Power BI is it's very sluggish. It's very slow. So it takes a while for it to open. It takes a while for it to give you access to things. So not the greatest program, in my opinion. Come on, any day now. Doesn't help that this machine is a little on the slower side. Okay, so you can see here, this is showing you the total views. This is from my YouTube channel and the number of views by date. So I'm going to load that in. And I'm going to continue to import the rest of my data in. So you can do it, click here from this page where it says import data, but also on the home toolbar here, it says Excel workbook. You can import it there as well. So as you load it, it will appear on the far right under that data tab. My goodness, this is ridiculously slow. So that you don't have to watch the wheel scroll around or since this is so slow, I've just paused the video as I've loaded in some of the data here on the right. Each time you're loading, I'm going into Excel workbook and I am then selecting my file. These are a mix of CSV and Excel files, so I want to make sure I have it show all of them. I've loaded these in except for the Sankey data, so I'll do that one right now. So we'll load it in here. So it takes a little while. It's kind of slow to load all your tables in. But once you load all your tables in on the right, they're in this little menu here where you can then look at each of the variables that are in that particular data set. And then you can start loading up your dashboard. If you have your data connected from SQL, so you're importing from an SQL server, you can click here SQL and link it. I mean, most people who are building dashboards, they want it to auto update with their data. And so more likely than importing an Excel spreadsheet, you're likely connecting it to an SQL server so it can continually collect as the data updates. You can see in this particular navigator that's appeared, that's because the Sankey Excel file had multiple sheets. And so if you do have multiple sheets when you're importing, you will need to specify which sheet, which tab actually contains the data. And so this one, sheet 1, is the data that I'm going to load in. All right, so now that I have all my data loaded in, then I can start populating my dashboard. Now, if you ever want to see what the data looks like of any of your particular tables, you can view that here on the far left. This view here on the left will let you look at the table, and then the view that we're in right now will allow us to populate the dashboard. So if, for example, I want to make a donut chart, that's going to be here on the right under the visualizations, third row, the one on the far right. If you want to do a stacked bar, so maybe you have opinion polls, or you can have just a simple bar chart, column chart. We're going to use the line chart in a moment. You can also add in tables. That's what you see here. We're going to do a gauge in just a moment. And then you have these cards that will let you populate just a single number. So you have a number of choices of different types of visuals, pie charts, donut charts. Just be wary that when it comes to the ones that are map-based, you will need longitude and latitude in order to do some of those. So it's limited to what type of data you have. So let's look at what type of data we do have. So let's start by creating a donut chart that looks at our viewership by age. So if I toggle here, then what you see is that I have all the variables that are in my age table here on the right. And so then as you pick, I want a donut chart. So I'm going to click on and double click the donut chart. And it will put it here on my dashboard. I can move it and resize it. But once you have it kind of placed on the dashboard, then you need to populate it here where it says legend and values and details. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at viewers and percentage of viewers, and we're going to drop that down into values. And then it should populate our chart. Okay, so we're going to look at here our number of viewers, and we'll put that into our legend as well. What we want is we want the different viewers by age. So what actually goes into our legend here is going to be this variable here that has the different age groups. So if I just zoom this out a little bit, what we see here are the different ages, categories, and then we can see the different percentages. So you can change the view to be, usually the default is sum. That'll give you what the number that is on your table. So if we actually looked at the table itself, clicking here to our table view, and not that one, we're going to look at the age table. So you can see here we have viewer age. That's the one that's going to be our labels. And then we have views percentage. That is going to be in terms of our donut chart, or we could do watch time in terms of breakdown that way. So is it the percentage of viewers or the percentage of time to build that donut chart? Okay. So you can decide then how that's labeled, and you can decide where to put it. So if we want to put it somewhere different, we can move it within our dashboard. All right, let's create another donut chart, and this one is going to be the gender. So let's create another one. Now, if you start clicking and you haven't clicked out of your previous chart, it will just replace it. So you want to make sure you kind of clicked out, and then we want to create a second donut chart. All right, so here's our second donut chart. We're going to populate this one by gender. And so we're going to do here, we're going to have views be our values, and our legend is going to be the different genders. And so we can see the breakdown there. All right, so we have some donut charts to see who's viewing our channel. Let's also add in maybe a line chart. And this line chart can show our total number of views over time. So let's then, we look at our line charts, the total views data set. If I look at what it looks like, total views, there we go, is just a date and a view. So what we want to do is look at the number of views over time. So let's go back, and we then want to take here and our x-axis, we are going to have views. Okay, actually, let's see, views are on the y-axis and dates are on the x-axis here. There we go. A little slow to load. So I'm going to take maybe this one and I'm going to spread it across. Maybe I'm going to stick it along the bottom of our dashboard here. Slow, slow, slow. So I'm going to resize this if I can, so I can put this below. When you're building your dashboard, remember that whatever is the biggest image or graph, that's the one you want to draw people's attention to. That's the one that should tell kind of the overall story, what is happening. And then everything else is kind of the details that help explain it. So if, for example, we want this one here to draw people's eye, we'll make it across the whole piece. So we could put it at the top or we could put it at the bottom. And this one here is showing here's how many people are viewing this site over time. And then if you're wanting to drill down and figure out, well, who are these viewers? We can see the viewers by gender. We can see the viewers by age. We could also create a card. So this card allows us to basically put in a number. So if you want to create a card, the way the card works is it is a single number. Okay, and we'll put this here in the center. Okay, now whenever you're populating Power BI, everything has to come from a table. So notice we don't necessarily have any particular table that has this information that we want. So you can create one, you can enter the data. So you can create your own table. Now, all information in Power BI is laid out the same way, which is you have a variable name at the top of your table, and then you have the data itself. So I'm going to, let's say this is 1 million. Okay, and my column needs a name. And my table needs a name. Okay, type here. Viewership. Okay. All right, so then we can load that in. So you can add tables where you have typed it in yourself. And then we can populate that. Where's the table I just created? Oh my goodness, this is slow. Torture. All right, come on. Viewership. All right, so once we have a table, then we can load that in. And so I'm going to then toggle that. I'm going to find the variable that has what I want, which is views, and then we'll drag it into our fields here. So we can have here our 1 million views. So let's say that we've hit a record in terms of viewership, and so we can have a card that denotes that. Other things we can add. We could add a table. So one of the tables that we have here is we have a table called content. So let's just go look at the table called content. And the one called content here has different names of videos, and it has the number of views. So we could create a table that shows the top viewed table or top viewed videos and the number of viewers for that. So let's go back. We would add a table. So it's just a basic table here. The other tables that you see there are pivot tables. So if you want it to be able to collect information, calculate how many people fall into different categories across multiple variables, then you would do that. But here, all we really want to do is just we want to add 2 columns. And our 2 columns are going to be from the content table. And so we are going to, from that content table on the far right here, we're going to take our video title. Okay. And then we are going to take the number of views. Okay. You may need to resize your table to make it fit. So you can see there we have a total number of views, and we have it, and you can have it so that it is, you determine which one is first, which one is second, by the order that you put it in. And so we can populate that. So let's add one more piece to this dashboard, and that is going to be a gauge. Okay, so if I want to add a gauge, gauges are used to track how we're meeting a goal. So this is the gauge here. And I'm just going to stick it in this spot here in between. Okay. Now again with a gauge, it's just like the card where I'm going to have to build a table that is going to populate it. Because when it comes to a gauge is going to need to have some kind of goal as well as how much, some kind of current score. Go away. What is this? I don't need your help. You go. Yeah, go away. I don't need any. Some kind of Q&A box that needs to disappear. So we can see when we add that gauge that it needs a minimum value, a maximum value, a current value, and a target value. So we're going to create a table that contains those pieces: minimum, maximum, target, and current value. So again, we're going to need to enter the data that you see there. And we're going to have each one of these be a variable. So that means that each one is going to be a column. So one column is going to be the minimum, and then we're going to have a maximum, and then we're going to have a target, and then we're going to have a current value. So we'll make the minimum 0. We'll make the maximum, let's say 30,000. So maybe this is our target. Let's say we want to have, 20,000 viewers a day. And then we can set the current number of viewers here. Excuse me. All right, and we'll just call this gauge. We need to create a name for our table here. Gauge. Okay. All right, so as soon as that loads into our data on the far right, then we can start populating that, that gauge here. So just give it a moment. Okay, so we should see that on the far right. Here's gauge. And then what we're going to do is just put them into their positions. So we'll put min into the min value, and we'll put max into the max value, and we'll put the current into the value at the top. And then the target here. So we can see here our gauge where we can be anything between 0 and 30,000. The target here is 20,000, and we're currently at 15. So we could have our dashboard then show we've hit a milestone of a total number of 1 million viewers. Our goal is to have 20,000 viewers a day. We're currently at 15. Here's how many viewers we've had over the history of our channel, and then we can dig into who those viewers are and what those viewers are watching. So as you're laying out your dashboard, consider what visual shows the big picture, the main idea. Often it's the biggest or in the center, so maybe that's the total million, or the fact that we're looking at viewership over time, and then the rest of the pieces are going to support and drill down into what we're seeing in terms of visuals. So you can see here with these visualizations a number of different choices for visuals. If you want to add additional visuals that you don't see here, you can add more visuals. So there are other visuals that can be added, like a Sankey diagram, for example, if you are doing, say, accounting or financial components. So in order to get those additional visuals, what you want to do is you want to go into View. Oh, where is that? Sorry, let's go Insert. There we go. Insert, and then we want to go to Insert More Visuals, and we're going to do From App Source. And there you can choose things like word clouds and Sankey diagrams. I guess it's not letting me in here because I'm not logged in. Let's see. So what it should give you is a bunch of apps where you can then choose additional ones that are available through the Microsoft visuals here. All right, well, hang on while I log it all in. All right, so once you're logged in to your account, you can then see a number of other visuals that are available here. The ones you're most likely to use, I think, would be like the word cloud and the Sankey diagram. So we'll just show you here, for example, the Sankey diagram. Okay. So there's a number of different ones that you can choose from. You can go with the ones that are built by Microsoft, or you can go with ones that are built by third parties. So we'll just add in the Sankey diagram here and show you how that one works. So we want to hit add. And when it adds it, what it will do is it'll put here with your visuals, it'll add your additional visuals here. So you can see the Sankey diagram has been added. I might want to do a word cloud, so I'll just show you that one quick here. In other videos, we've showed you how to make word clouds in Python. You can do it in Power BI as well. So let's type in word cloud. So you can see same thing. We would just go in, add it, and then it'll appear to the right as one of your visuals. So let's add it in. And again, it'll appear on the right. Now, in terms of the data I have, none of the data I have currently loaded in is really conducive to a word cloud because none of it's words, it's all numbers. So instead of doing the word cloud, let's add in a Sankey diagram. It's not really relevant to the dashboard I've created here, but I'm just going to make space for it so you can see how it works. Come on. Okay, so let's double click here to add in our Sankey diagram. And then you can see here when it comes to a Sankey diagram, we have source and destination and weight. So the data set I have for the Sankey diagram, let's just go and look at it. So here, let's look at the table and let's look at the one that is the Sankey diagram, which is the one that's just called sheet. So let's look at the table called sheet. If you want to make a Sankey diagram in a Power BI, you basically need 3 columns. You need a source, a target, and a value. So what this is saying is that the amount of revenue that becomes gross profit is 170. The amount of revenue that becomes the cost of revenue is 224. So combined, 224 and 170 are the total revenue for this organization. So I need basically, it's a flow. Sankey diagrams show flow of money or information. And so we need to know where it's flowing from and who it's flowing to, and then how much is flowing. So if I'm going to create a Sankey diagram, I'm going to take my sheet 1 here, and we're going to put in source, the one I called source. And then where it says destination, that's going to be your target. So it's a similar layout to the Sankey diagrams you can do in Python. So it's the same table, in fact, that we used in some of the other videos. And then in the weight here is where you're going to have that flow. And I'm just going to make this bigger so we can see it properly. But you can see then with the Sankey diagram, this flow of money here, revenue, how much goes to cost, how much becomes gross profit, portion of that goes to research and development, rest of it becomes earning before interest and tax, and so on as we go through the income statement. So Sankey diagrams often used in finance and accounting to show the flow of money. You can add them here in your Power BI dashboard as well. So if you're creating a dashboard in Power BI, the key things to remember is that first you need to import it in, so as an Excel workbook, or if you're connecting to an SQL server where it's auto updating your data, you need it linked so the data shows here on the far right. Then you have your visuals, and you're going to double click them to get them to show up. And then once you have kind of at a placeholder spot, you then populate them with the variables in your table. So the key is the names at the top of your table is what you're going to drag and drop. And so for many of these, there was a variable that was the names, the nominal, the categorical, like the different ages or the different genders. And then there was another variable that actually had the number of people who fell into an age group or fell into a gender group. And then we want a line chart, for example, we had two variables. One was time and one was the value. So you're just dragging and dropping them into these spots, very similar to you did with pivot tables or pivot charts in Excel. If you want to do things like cards, like gauges, then you will need to add data because you need to put it in the format it's looking for. In which case you go to enter data here and then type it in. It will need a variable name because that's what you're going to select, and then a value that goes within that variable. So for cards and for gauges, there's only one value for each variable. You can add tables, you can have pivot tables and other types of visuals just like you have in Excel.